Hello, my name is Steve Jaguar.
And I'm Mike Foster. Welcome to the show. It's a big show today. We're talking ReInvent. Steve just got back from Kubernetes 1.26 is out, a bunch of layoffs, and I'll be doing a live demo for you later in the show. Welcome.
Hello, hello. I'm about to disconnect my VPN. Otherwise, this will go very badly. There. If I glitch, you know why.
Yeah. Welcome back, Steve. For those just tuning in, it's been a couple weeks. Steve's been off at ReInvent, but of course, this is your place for all news cloud native, including the new Kubernetes release, which is what we're going to get into. All the links are going to be dropped down below on YouTube. And of course, hit that little notification bell and subscribe so you know when we're live, so that when we do come at a random time at 5 p.m. GMT, 12 p.m. noon, because of the Brazil game, you'll get notified.
Sorry, it's still 0-0. If you tuned out to watch us, still 0-0. Boring.
Heard Croatia's playing well, though.
No, they're not. They're just holding on to the ball. They haven't even had a shot on net.
Soccer for
It's
you.
a typical demonstration of time wasting.
What are you going to do?
Anyway.
Yeah. Now, you came back from your own event, right? Not a World Cup type, but sort of the World Cup of tech. How was ReInvent?
Oh, okay. You're that's quite a compliment for AWS.
I was trying to make a transition, didn't really work well.
Yeah, that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I've been meaning to ask you. So yeah. I wanted your thoughts on what you did. So general week, thought of the event, how it was run, types of sessions, and overall, if you were going to give any advice to a first timer going to ReInvent, what to expect.
All right, no problem. All right. What did I think in terms of what was the order of operations, things that I did? Anyway, my experience. I'll tell you what I did. So I got, unfortunately, rather trapped, but it was awesome at the AWS Jam because I created this thing called an AWS Jam. I never actually participated in that before. It hasn't been around for the entire duration of ReInvent. It's like 2017, maybe 18, but even that was really small, kind of really off the radar. And the idea is they create these hands-on situations that teach you how to use different services. Simple, sounds simple enough. Lots of people can make them, typically made internal by solution architects. But as a sponsor, you get to make whatever one you want. So I made this capture the flag that showed you how to use pipeline, parameter store, not that that's complicated, Cloud9, and it kind of put it all together into a vulnerable deployment. And you had to hack it and protect it all in one. But unfortunately, it turned out, unbeknownst to me and my colleague Matt, we had to babysit the entire jam for 2 days. So even on the first day, we had no idea what was going on. We had to sit there and represent the brand, which meant I didn't get to see a single talk like Tuesday and Wednesday. Yeah, so that happens when you are a sponsor. Sometimes you probably know the pain of sitting outside and watching people go in and out of awesome talks. Going, just do that? No. So that's kind of where I was most of the time, and occasionally being an expensive T-shirt courier. And that was because it was bigger. They had stuff like mainly at the Venetian and then the adjacent, but stuff was happening at the Mandalay, and they were running these really big shuttles back and forth. And it's like everyone hates shuttles.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like last year where they ran out of tickets. This year, it's like they let everybody in. So I think there's like, I heard 30, 40,000 people as opposed to a third of that last year. But they had, it's like every hotel seemed to have some kind of thing going on. So you needed to plan. And my advice for if you're new to reInvent, understand that if you get a ticket, get it early. If you want to see particular things, research the agenda really early and reserve seats. Otherwise, you'll get to see maybe 2 things in a day because you'll spend traveling and queuing. That's all you'll do.
Queuing.
Really?
Yeah, you Brits love
or
that
lining
too.
up for New North Americans.
Yeah, the location matters, right? Like, I mean, like you said, some of the sessions were in Mandalay Bay. I know my boss Stu had a session, I think it was in Mandalay Bay, and you had to walk through like 10 minutes to get there. It's so out of the way, right? It's so even if you want to see a speaker, all that stuff needs to be planned accordingly. Other plans, parties, things that you got up to in Vegas? What's the who threw the best one? Obviously, you're gonna say Palo Alto
Networks.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we did have the entire outdoor space underneath the fake Eiffel Tower.
Wow.
Okay. Open air, and as usual, they came through with a total kick-ass nighttime event from like 9 until midnight or something like that. It was good. I'm not going to deny. There was the usual stuff, the 1,000 instances of Top Golf, if you love that. Easiest thing to sneak in every night and just go, yeah, I'm with them.
Yeah.
The people were a little more strict this year. Last year, you didn't have to show your AWS pass. You just had to register online and go. And this time, I think they got a lot of hitchhikers last year because this year they were like, are you actually at the conference? So there was a bit of that, which was good. So a lot of venues, a lot of events sold out. So much like if you're going to events, you had to register. I think we took 600 registrations for ours, 300. And we did, like, just to be sure, people tend to rapid fire register for all the parties and then pick
they actually show up.
Yeah, like then only a small amount show up, but we were jammed because I think simply based on reputation of always doing something cool. So it was good.
Definitely helps.
Yeah. And this is going to sound like a total cop out, but favorite thing was the Werner keynote.
Wow.
Yeah. Not only just because of the other keynotes were a bit crap. No, I mean, so I heard, but they were not like the Adam Zelensky was really boring, really corporate. I didn't see the MLAI one, but guy who loves MLAI said it was pretty good. But then Vogel comes out, and normally he's wearing some Rock Band t-shirt. Like last year he had Stranglers. This time he just comes out with a giant lambda on his t-shirt, and we're like, oh, I wonder what this will all be about. And it was. He had all sorts of clever analogies. He had a hilarious Matrix intro where he had to choose the red or blue pill. I don't know how much money they put in these things, but it was like bonkers.
Yeah.
So that was really quite good. And then he just proceeded on going through event bridge pipes, how to connect service to service, like solving problems with more advanced these things called global tables for connecting lambdas together. Like all the things, all the major announcements, all the tech announcements were all about making serverless way, way, way better. So kind of doubling down on where we feel the future is, abstraction layers on abstraction layers. So that was actually really quite interesting. I think from my perspective, less Lambda is they announced this thing. I think it was called, there's 2 things. One was called like Code Catalyst.
Yep, saw that.
And Yeah, and he just called it idea to production or something, and I'm just like, whoa, I want to play with that.
Yeah, I feel like it's trying to somewhat mimic Backstage, and Backstage being Kubernetes specific. They want to go container
Yeah,
specific developer environment where you can build, hook it up to your CI, you can develop, build, and deploy, do
right,
all your security checks all in one spot. It's interesting
right.
they're getting into that space. So,
Well, and it says it imports GitHub action workflows, and I'm
yep,
like, what does that do? I want to do that.
yep.
I'm curious. So
We'll have to
maybe
have
we'll
you
take
break and
that for a
hack it
spin.
soon.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. He's like, oh, okay, what vulnerabilities does that introduce to AWS? Awesome, let's do that.
Mm.
Which is a little bit of foreshadowing because there's a good GitHub action article later on in this show. So there we
Yes.
go.
Speaking of which, thanks for the wrap up. We'll see you there next year, hopefully.
Yep.
All right. Let's get into general news. We got K8's 1.26 out and more. Yes.
Still
It's
nil.
still 0-0.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
All right. All right.
Crunch time. Yeah, so 1.26 got released, I believe, last week. I was on a CNCF call discussing that for Canada, the Canadian CNCF group. There's a good article by Datadog. They're talking about the security features. Rory McCoon,
Yeah.
senior
Mostly. Yeah.
advocate. Yeah, he's over at Datadog now.
Yeah. Yeah. He's gone from Aqua to Datadog. Probably a good thing considering some of our news later on in the show. More foreshadowing.
Yeah, a lot of foreshadowing today. Yeah, pretty cool though. Windows host processes, network containers, not really applicable to a lot of the workloads that I tend to work with, but there are some other aspects down towards the bottom. There is
We
reduction in
skipped through this one. I like this one.
Oh, that's your favorite one? Okay.
That's my favorite one.
What did
And
you
what
like?
it's not my favorite is this little part here. If I click on this earlier in 4.0 page not found. Oops.
Oh, that's always fun.
That link, Rory. But the idea that previously, this is probably going to screw over my SecureCon submission because I submitted a workshop on how to create an admission controller.
Mhm.
Not obviously having the heads up that there's going to be an alpha feature that allows Kubernetes to have built-in validation admission webhooks using common expression language templates combined with a built-in in-cluster controller. So interesting. So I will take it upon myself to play with this and bring it to the show, because if my workshop does get accepted, I may have to pivot and use this technology, which actually would be awesome.
All right.
So I like that.
Yeah, alpha feature. Typically, it takes like 3 or 4 releases to get anywhere in your stable,
Yeah.
right?
We're about a year away. It could just
Okay.
be blow up my face.
Okay. Yeah, pretty cool. The other thing is who else typically does it? Oh, Sysdig. Sysdig has their full write-up of, I think it's 37 or 42 features, a couple deprecations as well in the API, but Sysdig did their normal write-up. Very well done if you want to check them out too. Any other big news? It's kind of a quieter release. There wasn't a lot of hubbub about it. Even at KubeCon, they didn't make a lot of noise, I think, about 1.26.
No,
So,
they didn't. Kind of snuck up on me a little bit, actually.
mhm.
Yeah. And I mean, it's cool to see they're signing the releases of Kubernetes, which is,
Yeah.
I guess becoming table stakes a little bit, but that's cool that that's there.
But they do it. Google's doing it. I know Red Hat's getting to that point where all the releases are getting signed and shipped out. So, and actually a lot of foreshadowing into one of the other articles coming up with CVs. So, pretty
Fantastic.
interesting. Another couple of announcements in the CNCF space. We have GitOps being graduated. So the first one, Argo graduated. Funny because the Argo project on Twitter actually released the news early. They released the news like end of November saying they had graduated, but the CNCF hadn't put out a public statement yet. I thought that was kind of funny.
Argo is always causing trouble.
Yeah, Argo is always causing trouble. They originally, I think they put in to be graduated in January this year. It was very early, and we talked about how they didn't hit the security threshold. There's a bunch of issues. Yeah, the whole Argo project is graduated now, and it is obviously one of the biggest projects in the CNCF. So I think people were more shocked at why it took so long. But
Yeah,
it's good that they're finally there. So I think it's the
they obviously
19th
placated the right
project.
people. Yeah. So we just transition right to the next one.
Yeah, 19th project onto the 20th project. Since we said GitOps is graduating, Flux did too.
Yeah.
I almost feel like this is political. I think they both graduated at the same time.
I
weird,
feel like
right?
I think Flux thought they were going to get there before Argo.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, true.
Yeah, they are. They've disturbed less shit and are actually quite involved with CNCF. I mean, I think the WeWorks founders were founders of CNCF. Like they're very involved. So it is interesting that it's happened at the same time. But yeah, it seems fair. They sort of compete with each other, oddly.
Yeah. Although I feel like Argo is more, the Argo project is more used.
It kind of does. I mean, I use Argo over Flux. I just found it easier. But who knows, right?
True.
I'm not gonna take sides in this fight. Flux is based in London, so
Ooh.
yay. Yeah.
All right.
Gotta go local.
Yeah. And we have a GitOps theme because the next article is talking CICD risks. Steve, you got this one going.
I did. I think it's fascinating. So how many top tens are there? It's somebody told me recently, and I think it was Sam Stepanian who runs London, mentioned in the DevSecOps London Gathering birthday. He came in and did a big OWASP wrap up, and there was a whole lot of like, wow, there are so many OWASP projects. It's getting out of hand. But I like it that someone's put the time. Actually, I should check who the contributors were to this to see who is the author of this. Here we go. Cider. Oh, so one of my colleagues, Daniel.
Yeah, new colleagues, right? Since Palo Alto bought out Cider.
Yeah. Oh, that's quite cool. Oh, I'm gonna have to jump into this then. This is a little bit of an inadvertent plug.
Nice.
But it's interesting because I think it really takes diving into. It's a top 10. I don't know if you read it, but it's like insufficient flow control. Okay. And every one of them kind of gets you scratching your head, going, oh, what do they mean by that? Inadequate identity and access. Okay, you can take that straight out of the original top 10. Dependency chain abuse. There's a nice hot button item. Okay. Poison pipeline. Well, you know why it's poison pipeline execution? Is because they made up the phrase. Cider made up the phrase poison pipeline execution. It's in an article, and it's part of the research that fed into my research. There's a little bit of self-congratulatory.
Yeah, insufficient PBAC.
Yeah,
pipeline-based access control.
Exactly. I wonder if they made PBAC up. Maybe they did. I don't know. I don't know about that one, but I still like that it exists. OWASP liked it enough to review and accept it, and we'll go from here. I think it's an interesting article to read. So again, down in the links, take a look.
Just on to the next one, might as well, because you are coming back from reInvent, but you.
Oh my God! And I just lost. Or am I kicked out, or is he kicked out? I say I'm live. All right, he's back.
I'm back.
Did you kick yourself out rather than the stream?
I hit back button on my mouse and it kicked me out of the.
That's funny. All right. Oh well. See, I showed up late to the last one, so I had 2 seconds of revenge there from you.
There you
Black
go.
Hat USA released the channel that has all the Black Hat talks. So for those of you who didn't spend an absolute arm and a leg to go to Black Hat this year, which was colliding with B-Sides and DEF CON, hey, here you go. Here's all of the quite cool ones. There's a good Kubernetes privilege escalation container escape there. I hadn't looked through to see if there's the one where they take over the Elon Musk satellites. That was that was one, but I have a feeling that one wasn't recorded for obvious reasons. But a lot of you could basically blow a week. And you know what? See, as I have knee surgery next Monday. There we go. There's my week done.
Ooh, good luck.
Yeah, scary.
No kidding. I think we got our last one coming up. Last one in the general news before we get into the crazy stuff.
Okay, this is how do you know?
Build binaries on GitHub.
So this is Reddit. Normally Reddit stuff comes from you because I know you live where the kids live. TikTok and Reddit.
Okay.
And downloading pre-compiled software GitHub is the same as being closed source. Yeah, essentially, you go to an open source project, you blindly trust it, and you go, look, all the source code's there, and then you download its compiled binary from where its artifacts are. It's like, well, it might as well be closed. So it's just an interesting discussion as you roll down as to like what you can do, what you can't do, transparency into the build process. It just brings up the entire discussion around CICD provenance. And if you're releasing binaries, by the way, Brazil's up 1-0.
Whoa, big goal.
Yep. I didn't see it. I just looked down and went, oh, okay. 2 15-minute halves though, so there's still time for Croatia to come back. So it's interesting. There's some good links here. I don't know if did you take a look at this or did you, or even just some
I looked at the chat.
opinion.
I mean, it's pretty spot on. Reproducible builds obviously being extremely important. I think that having the CI process as part of the open source code is also extremely important. You can't just be having the code, building it locally, and then sending it to GitHub as a release. I think you want GitHub to be doing the build, to be able to see, okay, well, what container or what image is actually doing the build as well. And again, like when you write your code, you want things that are somewhat immutable. I think it was Endor had a really good talk in Open Source Summit talking about how to create something that's reproducible, and so that like every time you rebuild it, you get the exact same hash, because you're not injecting any sort of variables or things that could change as you're building it in your application. Pretty important, just an important step, but we're not quite there. I think, we're a little ways away, but yeah, that's my take. Did I miss anything?
Well, I'm probably going to go halfway. Of course, Dan Lawrence is in here going Sigstore, of course, answering that. This, I think, is crazy, this one here. Oh, it's all built on trust. There's no other way other than to compile the code yourself. No, which nobody will ever do. However, there was a method of dependency that we sometimes use here, where if we really feel it's a hot dependency, we fork it and thus pin it and build and run their build to create the same artifact locally for ourselves. So now we know it's ours, and then we sync our fork whenever we want to make a change. So we actually have forks of all of our major dependencies, thus solving the problem.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. And that is actually a discussion I had with one of the people at Endor once. Like, is this a thing? What do you think? And they're like, yeah, that actually is pretty cool. So I felt validated. It's a lot of work.
No kidding.
And you can only really do it for major dependencies. You can't just kind of go all willy-nilly on every little, like you're not going to on everything. But, it's an option, but obviously still highlighting the problem. All right.
Crazy
Done?
stuff.
Crazy.
Let's do it.
Bring it.
Yes, WTF. You put this one in, and it was somewhat general news, and then I was like, this is kind of a hot take. CVE and NVD are dinosaurs.
It doesn't work. Oh, where is it? There it is.
There we go.
CVE, NVD. Actually, this is if I remember, a pretty big article. Like you get a long, blurry history of CVE and stuff I didn't know. I didn't know that 1999 MITRE published a paper called Common Enumeration of Vulnerabilities, which then became I didn't know any of the history. So actually, it was really interesting just to read that. But then it started like garbage in, garbage out. The way CVEs are designed for big systems, incorrect and not technically verified, that is valid. NVD says itself, not technically verified yet. So it just goes, okay.
Yeah, it's self-reported, right?
Yeah, it's self-reported. So it's like, okay. Go on, hot take me.
Oh, I was just gonna say this is why people pay for things like Red Hat and different developers, especially on-prem, right? We technically validate all of our issues. We have responsible disclosure. You can look at all our vulnerabilities through our own feed. That's verified by our product security team. Like that's part of the reason is, you're not getting, when you're doing scanning with like ACS or Palo Alto, Prisma, whatever it is, that you're not getting false positives. These things from these feeds have been vetted, cuts down on time, makes somebody responsible for their software. So just from there's so much more when you buy a product like a Red Hat or a security scanner, security tool, whatever it is, platform. There's so much more built in there that gets overlooked, I think, when you're talking about value, right?
Yeah. I think there's of some of the organizations I have worked for, there is a white coat process a little bit to reduce findings. Like you'll find I think we've said this before on the show, sometimes if you get tools that produce findings in containers or open source software, sometimes less is more, because it means somebody somewhere has vetted the database. And it's not just the result of an open source tool that just gives you a billion things. And you're like, oh, I guess. So it's interesting, though, at the end, when they talk about the result of the problems, they're actually crediting something I'd never heard of, which was the global security database made by Cloud Security Alliance. It's like, I'm not familiar with that. I thought, I'm going to take a look in my offline time and see. They referred that because of this, we are not doomed. And I'm like, okay.
We're not doomed.
We're not doomed.
Okay.
I've also heard, yeah. And on the side, I've been looking into some of the companies that call themselves ASPM. So there's a bunch of like startups around, like throwing that acronym around, who are also claiming that CVEs and CVSS scores are nonsense. So yeah, they are. And so this is a better system. And I'm a little in the fog about it, but who knows, right? I guess there's some growing consensus around this.
We'll have to check back. We have 2 more episodes, I think, in the year, right? Before we get to 2.20, and then we're going to do our version 3 release in the new year. So stay tuned for that. Probably make an announcement, maybe do some graphic changes. You never know.
Yeah, I got a guy who's going to do it for us. Instead of me.
Yeah, Steve knows a guy. Very cool. There's speaking of Reddit, we were talking about this 2 seconds ago. Reddit thread that I stumbled onto was, how do I explain what I do to somebody who knows nothing about this field? And it's in Reddit, the cybersecurity Reddit. Here we go. I just thought the number one, I work with computers, mostly trying to prevent exciting things from happening. I do stuff, I guess.
There's some good ones. My job is to keep it, and then some of the replies as well are really good. Like, my job is to keep people from hacking our company. There's some down here where people are like, never say that. I am the sword of dark. I am the sword in the darkness. I am the watcher on the walls, the shield that guards the realms of men.
Yeah, the internet is dark and full of terrors, and you are the light.
Where was that one? That was really good.
Yeah, and then they said, I don't know, most people can't even remember their passwords. Good luck.
Yeah. Then some people take it seriously. Here's what we do: all these point forms, and it's like, that is how you get deer in the headlights. Yeah. Oh, there it is. There is dark, full of terrors. Yeah, that's amazing. Somebody said, "Is that Game of Thrones?" I think it doesn't say the internet.
Terrors.
I
think it is. Yeah, I think
it might be Game of Thrones quote. Computer cop. Somebody said, "Go with gynecologist." Okay, it's a little dark.
Okay. I work in IT. Yeah, that's typically the thing I say. It's like, what do you do? It's like, I'm in IT.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Anyway, this is what we do when we're not doing work.
Yeah, definitely a good read. All right. Oh,
is this our last WTF or second last WTF?
This is the second last one. This is the Aqua. So we talk about Rory going to, where'd he go again?
Datadog.
But yeah, Aqua Security lays off 65 people. Cognite lays off 100. I think Aqua, you said it's about 10% of the workforce.
Well, they say it's 10%, which actually
there it is.
That comes from them, and that blows my mind because I was Aqua's like 120th employee.
Wow.
So that means they have 650 employees now.
It's also crazy that they have 650 employees. Well, minus those 50 or however many it was.
So 600 left.
Yeah, and they're valued at what, like 2 billion?
Something crazy, but it's like, I was trying to do the math on it and think, I've been away from Aqua for 2 years or so, and they had about 200 when I left. So that means it's 400 people in 2 years. 200 people a year. That's almost a 1 person a day hire.
Yep.
That's insane.
Yeah. And you got to think that the 10% that they laid off are probably the recruiting team. It's probably a little bit of marketing and a little bit of recruiting that gets cut first, right?
I know people who were laid off.
Oh.
Tech people. Good people.
Wow.
Yeah. Actual people that you would have thought were totally safe. People who worked there when I worked there. You're like, what? So that's weird.
Interesting.
I don't know what the story is behind that, but some of the choices seem a little bonkers. It does seem actually also a little regionalized potentially, because it seems like certain people in certain regions were like certain regions that maybe wink been easier to let go than others.
Good point.
Because like the UK is impossible. Like, we can be the worst workers in your company and you can't get rid of us.
Wow.
Great labor laws here. Hey,
kidding.
I'm employed.
Yeah. Very nice. So last thing in the WTF is Apiro's AI engine detected a software supply chain attack in PyPy. I always laugh at that acronym PyPy.
Who's got a little pie?
That's exactly right. You put this one in, I think, right? But
yeah.
The only shout out I have for this article is Apiro has nice socks. I wear them all the time, so thank you for that. But
I too. I can't show you right now, but I am wearing my Apiro socks as well.
Okay.
We picked them up at SecureCon. They were swag heavy. Yeah. Malicious package. I don't know how to say that. There you go. So there was a base64 string executed. The author actually had no idea, right? Poor old Josh Kennedy here, the legitimate owner of the account, which was piggybacked by the malicious actor without Mr. Kennedy's knowledge. And this is where I started to read here going, wait a second. How do you piggyback? Like, what happened there? What major flaw happens that you can get in there and be the account? And I was a little, and it goes into some pretty great detail about how it actually works. And it just grabs your registry keys and passwords and sends them out to, gives you an example of the URL up there. And shows who downloaded, who used it, and they found it. They have a pretty cool AI engine, like the way they found it at Apiro. It's pretty clever stuff, but I still don't understand that part of it, right? Like they have the incident timeline. How can you do, like, what kind of, I think I don't understand the supply chain level of the attack. That's kind of weird. Now, what's interesting, I added a link for the show a little later on. I put it under CVE because it felt like a vulnerability, but maybe we could have done it here, where there is an example of how you can become somebody else's package, and it goes into enough detail. So maybe it's similar, but I mean, I can just speculate. Yeah.
You have to drop that one in next week's show.
No, it's there. It's at the end of the show. Yeah. We'll get there.
Okay. I missed that one.
Cool. Last minute. It was a last minute.
Very nice.
Yeah.
But until we get to the CVEs, we got to do big spenders. It's not a lot of people announcing spending towards the end of this year. Maybe it's a little bit of a lull, but there's a big one.
Okay. It's 1-1.
1-1? No way.
It's 1-1.
Gracious scored. Wow. That's a great game. I'm gonna have to go watch the highlights right after this.
I know. It's like all the game that happened up to where it was conflicting with our show, waste of time.
I know. And we moved the show just for that. We should have been doing it earlier.
We did.
What the heck, Steve?
We should just
goes into the WTF column. It's crazy.
Yeah. Us.
Yeah. All right. So we actually talked about Island earlier this year, and they're back. Series B funding, $6 million of additional investment. It is an enterprise browser that is being pushed.
Yeah.
And we talked about this, and we're like, is there a market for this? What's going on? And you think about it, instead of having Microsoft Edge, or if everybody's being remote, it's like, you use Chrome, you use Firefox, you use this. Well, when you go and ship a laptop to whoever it is, the browser will work on Linux, it will work on Microsoft Windows, it will work on Mac, and it's the same, has the same add-ons and plugins. You can monitor it instead of monitoring, especially people that do a lot of work just in web-based browser environments, where I don't need to put an agent on your computer to monitor everything you do on your computer. I don't need to see your photos and stuff. I just need to know what you do when you connect to the internet and what you're downloading and different packages and all that stuff, right? So it makes a lot of sense. Not shocked that they got, it's the valuation is at 1.3 billion, I think it is now.
Yeah, there it is there.
Wild.
1.3.
This company came out last year.
Yeah.
So
it's a good idea.
Yeah.
The most dangerous thing in your laptop is your browser.
Yep. I think it'd be more efficient. It's easier to manage, especially as a sysadmin with thousands of laptops, disparate environments across the world, especially with things like GDPR and all that. I remember reading something where somebody was worried that they had information on their laptop and they were traveling to the US, and they're like, is this a GDPR violation? Right?
Oh, anyways, God, yeah.
There's a ton of different questions that I think that this solution solves for. So pretty cool.
Yeah.
I kind of want to try it out. but I probably have to pay a hefty price tag.
Yeah, you have to be an enterprise.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah. All right.
Cookie time?
Cookie time.
Let's do it.
Now, what starts with the letter C?
The Cookie Monster. So you added one. Did you want to go first? Because mine is pretty lackluster.
Yours was the CVE with Vim?
Yeah, it's a very small one. It has no CVSS score.
Let's knock yours out first.
I added it because it had GitHub attached to it. Basically, it's a heap-based overflow in GitHub repository if you want to use Vim. And I think it's repository, but it's part of the build process. When I saw the reference, if you click on the link where it said confirmed kind of thing, I want to say I saw it in basically if you try to initiate Vim in a GitHub workflow and you do something in Vim, it will bleed into the next GitHub action somehow.
Holy shit, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not cool. It's terrible.
But it is very specific. And obviously, I guess one of the issues with CVSS scores is it got reported. They proved that it happened. But nobody really looked and did the follow-up to say confidentiality impact, integrity impact, availability impact. And I was looking through the CVE database, all through this week. So many of these are just not filled out at all. Zero scores. Like you have to go back to August to find something that actually has a useful score on it.
That's in this database here?
In this one, yeah.
So do you go to NVD and check there too?
Yeah, that's the thing. But I think it's more of a comment on you have to know where you're going to the source and filter out things properly. Because if anybody's using this website, it's like this one's almost kind of waste of time. But
this one used to be a lot better, and it seems like I don't know who keeps up to date anymore. I mean, they obviously were doing it for free because it looks like garbage. But
hey, whoever's doing
it was useful
watching,
nonetheless.
You do a great job. I found it, so it was very helpful. But
yeah,
definitely remnants of early 2000s.
All right. Last thing, and apologies if this is in the wrong section entirely. I just thought it was interesting because it was a vulnerability. Novel pipeline vulnerability discovered. So legit security, actually very similar to Cider. They do a lot of very cool things in the build space. And they found an issue where you were building Rust and you were doing it in a GitHub action. And it's so specific that it's barely a vulnerability. But I'll do. There's a big article here, but I'll fast forward you through it.
Okay.
So they've got a build here where they're using Antoyo GCC, right? And and there's a workflow called main, and that means they're downloading an artifact, which is this, which they then use to path to the artifact that gets created, and then they use it to set an env, and they do some Rust compiling. Bam! This all happens in a workflow. So what they found was that because there's a workflow being downloaded and there's a dependency here, this is an actual GitHub repo, and there's a main. Now, I don't have the link to the main, but the main, the action fires on PR. So the main will fire on PR. So whoever did this research, you can see the Antoyo and the main, they found that they forked it, modified main, and then pull requested it back to the original. And very much in the way that I do that GitHub attack, because main fires on pull request, the main that they submitted runs. And so it built a malicious version of the code and put it into the production area.
Wow. Okay. It's a major oversight.
So it's a major oversight. So this is what they found. And then they were able to create a poison artifact. Essentially, that's the method here. So they reported it to GitHub. What's hilarious, of course, is that GitHub went, well, it's a bad design, right? We're not doing anything wrong here. This isn't a GitHub vulnerability. This is a thing where people need to go see Steve's awesome GitHub talk about how not to do dumb things in workflows, like triggering on a PR. And allowing any old person to fork and return it. And yet that actually runs the workflow. There are a lot of best practices that weren't happening in this supply chain. So I thought Good article by Legit. Interesting that they found such a specific use case for it. They must be digging to make that happen.
Yeah, that's a lot of
it was
work.
a really interesting article. Yeah. It's fairly niche. And that they keep going to the bottom if you want to learn more about it. Obviously, the links are down below. You can see what they said. These are the workarounds, these limitations. They do teach you, some best practices off the back of it. So very cool.
Very sweet. And then to finish it up, we have a very quick tool time. It's gonna be quick, nice and fun, because I had to suffer to get through to this one. So I'll give you the story. Are you ready?
Does everybody know what time it is?
So originally it was supposed to be New Vector 2.0. I was going to go see what New Vector had been up to, see some of their changes, test it out on a couple workloads that I have. But if anybody's watching from SUSE, New Vector, I don't know if I couldn't follow it, but the documentation is terrible, and it wasn't deploying on GKE with your Helm charts. It also wasn't deploying on OpenShift with your operator, and it wasn't deploying on OpenShift with a Helm chart either, even though the documentation's right there. Also, password being admin, which is kind of iffy because they want you to sign it and then change it, which is fine. But then when you go and deploy with a Helm chart, it just doesn't really show you like, here's the password, here's how to sign in, here's what you should do to change it right there. I have to go to the documentation. I have to search for the password to find it. Anyways, whole workaround. I decided, you know what, scrap that. Maybe I'll do it New Vector 2.0 to finish out the season before the new year. But I ran into Aptakube, which is pretty cool.
Which I never heard of. Never heard of it. By the way, I'm gonna let you know they're down to penalties now.
They're on penalties.
They're on penalties. I should probably just do this and you keep talking.
Okay. There you go. All right. Well, if Steve screams in the background, who are we cheering for, Steve?
I don't think we care. I just like penalties.
Yeah. I like watching all the Brazil fans get upset sometimes. So
well, there's more Brazil fans there than Croatian fans by a long stretch. Brazil definitely played better in the game.
Yellow in the background there.
Yeah, it's all yellow. And even the people who aren't Brazil fans are Brazil fans because everyone else who isn't wearing yellow is wearing white, which means they're Qatar.
Oh, here he goes. Oh,
boom.
Flush.
No, we're not even doing the show anymore.
We're not doing the show. All right. Well, I'll do it real quick. There you go. You hold that up.
I'll keep this.
Yeah. So I stumbled across this desktop client for Kubernetes. Now, we've had a lot of desktop clients. I feel like UIs always make for flashy tool times. So I was like, all right, let's try this out. Download for Macs. It's got to be easy, right? Download it, move it into the folder. It gets set up right away. It's in my app folder. I can click on it. And so managing multiple clusters has never been easier. Connect to one or more clusters. Say goodbye to context switching. You can go and click multiple clusters and look at them together. And of course, it's not just Mac, even though I found it kind of funny. They put Mac at the top, but then they say download for Windows, Debian, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to contact them and get OpenShift on here because it does work for OpenShift too. I'm kind of a little pissed off at that. Like, how do you not give OpenShift a shout out? What the heck?
Seems crazy.
I know.
Missed.
Crazy. So once you get started, you basically click it and it pulls you right in. And what it does is just goes into your kubeconfig and looks at all the different contexts that are there, pulls that information and displays it to you. And so I have a couple of demos of things that I've set up, pipelines, but typically this is the one that I like to work in. I think that this is the only cluster I have up, so I can't do a dual cluster. But if you wanted to, you can monitor multiple ones and bring them to the dashboard, right?
Yeah.
So you can see I had a New Vector one that I tried to set up. Yeah. Obviously, that one sucked. But yeah, so here's my main cluster. You come in. There's no specific namespaces. It's the whole cluster. You can filter by the nodes that are there. You can check out the internal IP. Good luck getting to that one. Uh-oh. What's the score now?
Croatia scored both, and Brazil missed one.
Ooh.
2-0 on penalties, Croatia.
That's big. All right, so you see your nodes. You can see some events. So back off, restarting. Different things, front end that's having issues. You can see there's a lot of warnings. You can look at deployments, pods, replica sets, daemon sets. You can search by namespaces. So one of the things I think that they need to work on is being able to sort through and click multiple namespaces, because you really can only click like one or the other. Like you can't like click down if you want to see maybe a grouping. Ooh, snuck that one by though.
2-1.
2-1.
I'm going to show you the slow-mos.
Yeah, slow-mos are good. You can see all the services associated with it too, right? Cluster IPs, their selectors. This is in the default namespace. If I go to all namespaces, you can obviously see OpenShift is very
Yeah.
big.
There's a few.
A lot of services.
Yeah.
All the secrets as well. So I found it just really cool. If you're an operations team and you're trying to get a view, bird's eye view of everything that's going on, I think it's awesome. It's awesome for visualization. Now, one of the nice things is there's no controls. Like you can't control anything in the cluster using this UI. So that's one of the things that it's missing. Did he miss it? Wait,
No.
He got it?
3-1.
3-1.
This was golden boot at your.
I gotta keep talking until this is done, right? Like I have to just, we have to stay on.
I'm just showing you the goals. I'm
Gets
not going to, you don't see all the shit in the middle. So,
Okay. But yeah, I think from a visibility standpoint, if you're an operations team and you have access to all the Kubernetes clusters, it's really easy to switch contexts and get all that set up. However, it is missing any sort of enforcement, any sort of changes you can't do here. So you got to go command line or, everything is code, check it in, do all that stuff. But I think it's a good visualization. There's a little feedback thing. It's pretty cool. You can send directly to them. I'm going to probably leave a comment about the namespaces. I think that this should be a little bit bigger.
I scored. So it's 3-2. Little slow-mo again.
Oh, nice. I personally think
He dribbles
visible light and dark mode should be up at the top right here. And then should have on namespaces that specifically calls it out. Right. Along with like help or anything like that. I think that they should add to the top. I do have a filter there. Works just fine. But yeah, I think overall it's a great little product. Any thoughts while you're watching Brazil miss this next penalty?
I didn't actually see that. That was Croatia. He's fist pumping, so I'm assuming he got it. So if it all ends the way it ends, then Croatia's going to win this because Croatia's up by 1. Oh, a little dribbler.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Get pumped. Look at that.
So it's 5 each. What are we on now? Let me just see.
I made your screen bigger. You gotta hold it up for the 4 viewers in the
You're
crowd.
done. You're done your demo. All right, we're almost done. So
we're almost done. So if he misses this, it's over, right?
If he misses this, it's over.
Because it's 4-2, yeah. So he's got to make this to stay alive. Dun, dun, dun. This is intense. To our viewers, who are you cheering for? Kind of curious.
He missed.
Croatia upsets Brazil. Wow. Wild.
There it is.
I love soccer.
Look at this. Oh my God. It's like Starlings.
Aren't you glad? Okay, now I'm kind of glad we had the show at this time. This was fun.
Oh, all right. Woo. All right. Sorry. Bye. He's crying. All right. Sad.
Crazy.
Sorry to my Brazil friends out there. Sad times. But to my Croatian friends, well done.
Yeah, well done. Reminds me of when Germany beat Brazil like 8 years ago. Although Germany got
like 8-1.
Yeah, 7-1.
Yeah, it's like ridiculous.
Yeah, that was brutal. All right, so let's wrap it up. Thanks everybody for joining. Steve, any last thoughts? Tool time, sign off. Any shout outs you want to give?
No, my only shout out is I'm having a knee surgery next Monday, so it'll be the show will be on
next Friday.
Ask me how it went.
Okay, yeah, we'll see you all drugged up next Friday. We got 2 more shows to close out the year. So next Friday, the Friday after, 10 a.m. Eastern, what we're aiming for, back to the regularly scheduled program. And then tune in for 3 dots.
New year.
Oh, the new release in the new year.
New graphics, new people, maybe. Maybe we'll be on different sides.
Oh, yeah, we can mix it up. Until then, that's Steve Jaguar, and I'm Mike Foster, and we'll see you next week.